Hello everyone, welcome to Flooded Temples episode number 4. I know what you're thinking, this doesn't look like a flooded temple. Instead, it looks like Robson buried in a Tartarian mud flood. Well, that's true. Some of the people around here did me a big favor. They had the courage to let me know that many people struggle to take my content seriously. They also suggested that I could explain a bit better who I am and why anybody should listen to me when it comes to ancient temples. One thing that's probably abundantly clear when you watch any of my episodes is that I like to try and have some fun with the subject matter. But please believe me when I tell you I am genuinely sincere and I do believe the ideas I put forward. I live in a tiny town in Canada and I use my real name. I have some thick skin and I don't easily get embarrassed, but I wouldn't be making these videos if I didn't believe that they're going to age well. So, who is Robert Measures? My job as an industrial electrician involves maintaining power and control for many different operations involved in the mining and smelting industry. And because I have an understanding of the control and feedback system used today to maintain modern mining processes, I want to try and use that knowledge to examine what I think were ancient Egyptian industrial mining facilities and see if I can reverse engineer what other processes must have been going on there and how the whole place worked. This is my goal with Flooded Temples, so I hope this clears up a little bit about who I am and why I'm here, and if you have a sense of humor, don't take yourself too seriously, and like this type of content, then stick around and join me for episode number 4 of Flooded Temples. Just as soon as I get myself out of this mud. Hello everyone, welcome back to Flooded Temples. In the last episode, we left off with me hugging a little Egyptian statue while standing in waist-deep water. And I was asking the little guy, why was he shaking? Well, what I was humorously trying to allude to here was one of the feedback and control systems that need to exist to make the process that we've discussed at these temples work. You may recall that I mentioned before that these temples are similar to a wind instrument, except they play their music through the water, not the air. While wind instruments sometimes require tuning due to temperature, water instruments are even more susceptible to going out of tune because of the added density of the medium through which the waves have to move through. In simpler terms, sound waves move faster through water than they do through air, and the temperature of the water has a bigger impact on that speed than it would if they were moving through air. Okay, with that being said, let's go back and look at the process going on at one of these temples, starting at a location where we have 2 obelisks getting ready to be hit by lightning. For these 2 obelisks to create wave interference and cavitation in the water below, they must be struck by lightning simultaneously, causing the quartz blocks they sit on to generate waves that can interfere with each other. However, if you want the lines of low pressure and the lines of high pressure that cavitate water, which I've been calling the prominent central maximums, or just smaller side maximums to be shooting out at the right directions, then you need to make sure that both obelisks have the same frequencies and are placed in the same temperature of water. How do you do that, right? Well, in the next episode of Flooded Temples, I'll delve deeper into how the ancient Egyptians might have tuned their obelisks to different frequencies, utilizing the electrum paint found at their tops. It's a process that involves changing the mass over piezo of the obelisk in order to change its dielectric breakover point. So for now, if we assume that the obelisks are tuned to the same frequency, they're so close together that the water will be the same temperature. As long as they're receiving the same voltage in the form of one single splitting lightning bolt, then we shouldn't have a problem. The maximums will be shooting out the right way. Well, this seems like it's turning into a big nothing burger. I suppose for this part of the process, adjusting the water temperature to tune the speed of the acoustical waves isn't necessary. This means even on a really hot day in Luxor, the excess heat generated by the cavitating water won't be a problem. Okay, well, let's instead go look at the other oscillators that I think were involved in this process in the sanctuaries. And let's see if it needed to be tuned into resonance using the water temperature to pull this whole process off. So as I said in episode 2 of Flooded Temples, my guess is that these sarcophagi that are placed in the sanctuaries of the temples were actually oscillators that were shooting sound waves through the water and at the bases of the obelisk to give them a positive charge that would in turn attract the lightning. We also briefly reviewed the fact that only the odd-numbered harmonics from an oscillator can resonate in the chamber because it is closed at one end, creating a node at the back wall and an antinode flush with the open end. Like what happens for the 3rd, 5th, and 7th harmonics of the fundamental frequency of that chamber. For the 3rd harmonic, it means that if you place an oscillator that beats 3 times the fundamental frequency of the chamber, a third of the length of the chamber off the back wall, you're going to get perfectly stacked sound waves reflecting off the chamber's boundaries, and when interfering with each other, creating a significant increase in the amplitude of the sound within the chamber and making it amplify the specific frequencies at which the resonance occurs. Okay now, so would the temperature of the water affect the sarcophagi and their oscillations? If the sarcophagi was set to a specific frequency of oscillation, and the length of the chamber didn't change, giving it a set resonant frequency, would the temperature of the water really make a difference? Well, yes it would, because even if the oscillator's frequency remains constant, temperature changes can cause the wave to fall out of resonance with the resonant chamber by alternating the speed of sound within the chamber, which in turn affects the wavelengths that resonate. If the wavelength required for resonance no longer matches the chamber's dimensions, due to the temperature-induced changes in the speed of sound, the wave will no longer resonate even if the oscillator's frequency remains unchanged. So there you go. In my opinion, if you want to have reliable lightning strikes at your temple, then there needs to be an optimal working temperature maintained around your RPG. But how do we do this? What kind of feedback control loop could be used to change the temperature of the water? I think it's obvious, and most people would agree, that the ancient Egyptians were masters at manipulating water. And if the water started to get too hot, they could easily pull a lever, opening a gate somewhere on the Nile River to let more cool water in. Even today, I've seen reported by Geoffrey Drum of the Land of Kem that there is still an available water source in the east courtyard at the Temple of Karnak, right next to the RPG that needed cooling. I don't think the real question is how they added more cold water to the process, but rather, how did they know when the water was getting too hot in the first place? The first solution that came to my mind was, why not have a little light bulb that either lights up or turns off when the water temperature gets too hot? As I've mentioned several times in the past, if you hit piezoelectric materials with intense acoustical waves to deform the crystal inside, you'll create an electrical charge across it. Maybe the ancient Egyptians took one of those light bulb looking things with the snake inside that you see underneath the temple of Hathor in Dendra, and they used that as a signal, because now that the waves fell out of resonance with the chamber and lost their strength, they're no longer able to light up the light bulb. Well, while snake filament light bulbs do sound pretty cool, I don't think anything like that is going to work, because I've never met a light bulb that didn't need 2 wires to glow. And with just this one wire, you won't get current flow. Another idea I've heard mentioned is maybe the black granite statues behave like tuning forks. Or my thought is, maybe they were holding on to tuning forks. Perhaps all that was required was for an ancient Egyptian to hang out, enjoy some ales and a few loaves of bread, and listen for the humming of the statues and the tuning forks to stop. At that time, he let more cool water in. A tuning fork's U-shape is crucial for its ability to produce a pure, consistent tone. This shape enables balanced oscillation, where the 2 prongs vibrate in opposite directions, canceling out vibration in the handle and maximizing the fundamental frequency. This results in a clear, sustained sound. While the handle doesn't vibrate significantly, it can still transmit vibrations when placed against a surface, such as a table or musical instrument. This allows the tuning fork to amplify its sound. It didn't take long to find a couple things in ancient Egypt that look like tuning forks. There's this example of 2 hieroglyphs that look like tuning forks tied together with some rope on this statue of Isis and Anubis. And again in a book by Mark Collier and Bill Manley called How to Read Egyptian, I found what again looks like a tuning fork with some string that's supposed to represent a boat's mast. If you search for ancient Egyptian tuning forks online, you'll find a conspiracy theory about tuning forks. The story goes that someone picked a lock of a door leading to an Egyptian museum storeroom. Inside, they found hundreds of tuning forks ranging from 8 inches to 8 feet tall, with a thin wire stretched between the tines of the forks, and when it was plucked, they vibrated for a very long time. And now, while I definitely enjoy a good conspiracy theory, if you do a search on whether tying the tines of a tuning fork together would be helpful or hinder its ability to vibrate in resonance, it suggests that it would actually create a lot of dampening and generally stop it from vibrating properly. So there I was, a little dismayed and perplexed, but I decided not to give up hope. I did one more search and found out that many people think the Egyptian ankh could be a tuning fork. The use of sound and vibration for healing and spiritual purposes in ancient Egypt is well documented. The ankh is believed by some to have been used as a frequency modulator, directing sound and potentially acting as a tuning fork. So that's my pick, folks. I think the fact that the ankh is so uniform on both sides of the handle, and even though it's not U-shaped, It's such an iconic and repeated symbol in ancient Egypt. My guess is that it played an essential part in the technology that would have made these ancient Egyptian ultrasonic jewelry cleaners work. Well, that's it for today, everybody. Thanks for watching. Next time on Flooded Temples, as promised, we're leaving Egypt and heading to India. We're going to check out the Ellora caves in the Aurangabad district of India and see if we can determine if they were using a similar lightning-powered form of technology over there. So if you're interested in this type of content and you've watched this video all the way through till now, then please show me some love. Like and comment below. Thanks again for watching. All the best.